According to a data that was released in 2024 by the VDEM Institute, the Republic of Kenya was ranked number 1 in terms of the Democracy Index of countries within the East African community. This isn't surprising because in the past 60 years, the people of Kenya have shed a lot of blood for the sake of their political freedoms. The freedom spirit started in 1952 during the famous Mau Mau Rebellion against British colonial rule. The spirit continued in 1991 when Kenya was able to attain multipartyism. The dreams of our political freedoms were later actualized in 2010 when the late President Kibaki unveiled the most progressive constitution in Africa. What research centers use to measure the democracy of any nation, it is the free and the fairness of its elections, because that is what defines a democracy, the ability of the people to elect their leaders of choice through free, fair, and credible elections. Since Kenya became a colony of Great Britain in 1920, the country has conducted very many elections. During the colonial days, it was only the Europeans who had a voting right to elect members of the Legislative Council, which we now know as the National Assembly. Serious issues concerning the colony were only decided by the governor, who got orders from London. After independence, the country inherited the British parliamentary system of government, where the leader of the majority party in parliament became president. In 1966, a section of KANU members led by Jaramogi Oginga Odinga dumped KANU to form the Kenya's People's Union. The reason as to why they left KANU was because they accused Kenyatta of corruption and authoritarianism. In retaliation, Kenyatta then amended the constitution that forced the members who had defected to run for a by-election in the same year, which they ended up winning several seats in parliament and in the Senate. In 1969, KPU and other small political parties were banned, making Kenya a one-party state. The government maintained this political status quo throughout the Kenyatta and part of the Moi era. Since there were no other political parties that were allowed to run, the president faced no competition. This helped him to maintain and to consolidate power, making him to go unchecked. For those who were brave enough to speak out against the political injustice, the state machinery was used on them to the maximum. Some good examples were pro-democracy activists the likes of Raila Odinga and Kenneth Matiba, who were heavily tortured in the infamous Nyayo torture chambers. Moi's dissidents used to be beaten, starved, raped, and even left out in a dark room filled up with cold water to their necks inside the chambers. President Moi showed this animosity mainly because of the failed 1982 coup attempt against his government. The failed coup left him paranoid and scared, leaving him with only one choice but to protect his power. That is why he became very tough towards anyone who dared to speak against him, because he saw them as a threat to his regime. But after a lot of political pressure from within the country and the United States and the UK, in 1991, Moi amended Section 2A of the Constitution, reintroducing Kenya back towards multipartyism. President Moi ran in the 1992 and the 1997 elections, which he both won, but there were allegations of electoral fraud from his opponents, the likes of Matiba and Kibaki, because of how unpopular Moi was. In 2002, the constitution banned Moi from seeking a third term, which he willingly obeyed. He opted to endorse Uhuru Kenyatta, son of the first president, to carry on the KANU mantle. The 2002 election was a big moment for Kenya because it ended the 24 years of Moi's authoritarian rule and 39 years of KANU's leadership. Mwai Kibaki, who was the candidate for the National Rainbow Coalition, defeated KANU's Uhuru Kenyatta with a margin of 1.8 million votes, making Mwai Kibaki the third president of Kenya.
Mimi Mwai Kibaki naapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Jamhuri ya Kenya na kuitumikia kwa moyo wangu wote, na kwamba nitahifadhi, nitailinda na kuitetea katiba ya Kenya kwa mujibu wa sheria ilivyowekwa. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu nisaidie.
Soon as Kibaki took power, his main objective was to revive the Kenyan economy, which had been destroyed through corruption by Moi. Kibaki empowered state institutions like the judiciary, which was under state capture. He fulfilled the promise of free primary education within his first 100 days in office and created a good environment for local and foreign investors to invest. Among the main things that was in the NAC MOU was that Kibaki will help to create a constitution that ensured fair share of power within the arms of government. This involved the creation of a powerful prime minister position that will keep the president in check so as there could not be another Moi. During the drafting of the constitution, Kibaki usurped the NAC Memorandum of Understanding and advocated for a constitution that gave more powers to the president while disenfranchising the position of prime minister. The draft constitution was subjected to a referendum in 2005 that was endorsed by Kibaki and was rejected by people like Raila and Charity Ngilu, who were part of the NAC coalition. The referendum split the coalition government into two sides, those who were for and those who were against, with those who were for using a banana as a symbol, while those who were against using an orange as a symbol. After a vigorous campaign by the two sides, Kibaki lost to the no vote with a margin of 1 million votes.
This constitution gives the president a power over dictatorship, so we must avoid it and say no.
The way this referendum was voted for, it will be the precursor of how the 2007 general election will be voted. To show how Kibaki was mad of the outcome, he fired his entire cabinet that consisted members of the coalition government and appointed new ministers from his tribe who were only loyal to him.
Fellow Kenyans, following the results of the referendum, it has become necessary for me, as the President of the Republic, to reorganize my government to make it more cohesive and better able to serve the people of Kenya. Accordingly, in accordance with the powers conferred upon me under the Constitution of Kenya, I have directed that the offices of all ministers and all assistant ministers become vacant. Consequently, the occupants of the said offices cease to hold their respective offices with the immediate effect.
In the 2005 referendum, 99% of the yes vote came from Central Province that was dominated by the ethnic group of the Kikuyu, the largest ethnic group in Kenya, which Kibaki was a part of. 99% of the no vote came from the other 7 provinces that were dominated by different Kenyan tribes depending on each province. For example, the Luo dominated Nyanza province, while the Kalenjin dominated Rift Valley. These regions also had their own prominent politicians, the likes of Raila Odinga and William Ruto. The two most prominent candidates of the 2007 election were Kibaki and Raila. The unwritten rule was that the election was basically between the Kikuyus versus all other tribes. The election was conducted by the state-controlled Electoral Commission of Kenya on December 27, 2007. The Election Commission announced the results 3 days later, declaring Kibaki as the winner.
Honorable Moi Kibaki, 4,584,721. 4,584,721. Mr. Kukubo Nixon, 5,927. Honorable Kenneth Matiba, 8,046. Honorable Alonzo, 879, 903. Bishop Pius Mwangi, 9,667. Joseph Ngacha, 21,171. David Ngede, 5,976. Honorable Raila Odinga, 4,352,993. 4,352,993. Rajput Nazlin, 8,624. This means Honorable Moi Kibaki is the winner. The Commission therefore declares Honorable Moi Kibaki as the President of Kenya.
What followed was a sporadic spread of anger and violence across the country, because everyone knew that Kibaki had stolen the vote. Fightings took place mainly within parts of Nairobi, Rift Valley, and Central Province. The violence was intertribal, mainly between Kibaki's Kikuyu community versus Raila and Ruto's Luo and Kalenjin community. President Kibaki went on and hurried the sworn in himself at the same night that the results were announced, while having the full backing of the police and the military.
Mimi Mwai Kibaki naapa kwamba nitatenda kazi zangu za urais kwa Jamhuri ya Kenya kwa uaminifu na kutimiza wajibu wa kazi hizo kwa bidii na kwa moyo mkujufu, na kwamba nitawatendea haki watu wote wa mujibu wa sheria, mila na desturi za Jamhuri ya Kenya bila uoga, upendeleo, uba wala chuki. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu unisaidie.
Violence crossed over to 2008, lasting for approximately 2 months. The violence was stopped through mediation by the UN Secretary General, Kofi Annan, where both Kibaki and Raila agreed to form a power-sharing grand coalition government, with Kibaki as president, while Raila as prime minister. The aftermath of the 2007 post-election violence left over 1,000 people dead and over 600,000 people internally displaced. During Kibaki's last term in office, he helped Kenya to establish a new progressive constitution that was passed in 2010 after a majority of Kenyans accepted it through a referendum. The new constitution introduced devolution and greatly weakened the office of the president by spreading key functions of governance to the legislature and the judiciary. Kibaki left a legacy of economic growth and a new progressive constitution, but also he left a bad legacy of causing the 2007 post-election violence. The next election happened in 2013. It was conducted by the new Election Commission, the IEBC, that was mandated by the Constitution. Because of the unhealed trauma of 2007, the election was conducted in a free and fair manner. Uhuru Kenyatta won the popular vote after defeating ODM's Raila Odinga, making him the 4th president of the republic.
Amekuwa amiri jeshi mkuu wa majeshi yote ya ulinzi ya Kenya. Haya, tumshangilie kwa makofi, shangwe na nderemo. Haya, asanteni.
In 2017, the country conducted another general election. Uhuru Kenyatta was seeking a second term as per the guidelines of the new constitution. His main rival was none other than Raila Odinga. After the voting and the tallying was completed, the IEBC announced the results, declaring Uhuru Kenyatta as the winner. Raila sought justice to the Supreme Court, claiming that the vote had been rigged. After a court assessment, the court, under the leadership of Chief Justice David Maraga, annulled the presidential election and called for a rerun on the guidelines that the first respondent, which was the IEBC, did not conduct the presidential election according to the guidelines of the Constitution.
The first respondent committed irregularities and illegalities inter alia in the transmission of results, particulars and the substance of which will be given in the detailed and recent judgment of the court. The court was satisfied that they did, and thereby banning the integrity of the entire presidential election.
Two judges, however, struck a different tone. Justice Njoki Ndungu holds the election was conducted in accordance with the Constitution.
The ruling made Raila's camp very happy, but left Uhuru's camp very angry.
If you have accepted all the rest of the results, let us accept the ruling. Maraga, don't interfere. And don't think that because our friends shout and we keep quiet, that we are scared of you.
The rerun was then set for October. In a surprise move, Raila decided to boycott the election, claiming that the election will again be rigged. The rerun election was again conducted by the IEBC, with Uhuru emerging once again as the winner, hence securing his second and final term in office.
I, Uhuru Kenyatta,
do swear that I will always truly and diligently serve the people and the Republic of Kenya, that I will diligently discharge my duties and perform my functions in the office of President of the Republic of Kenya
Since Raila had refused to participate in what he called a sham election, he decided to swear in himself as the people's president the following year.
In full realization of the high calling, assume the office of the people's president of the Republic of Kenya. So help me God.
This move raised tension within the country. Prices in the Nairobi Stock Exchange tanked. People became afraid to open their businesses in fear of violence, and schools were temporarily closed in prone conflict areas. So as to prevent a repeat of the events of 2007, Uhuru and Raila met privately and made a political deal that lowered tensions within the country. The political deal was a proposed constitutional amendment known as the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative, whose main objective was to introduce reforms within the IEBC. The BBI was later rejected by a High Court ruling, stating that the president had no authority to initiate a constitutional change outside of parliamentary or popular initiative. This left President Uhuru with only one option, and that is to back Raila's 2022 presidential bid. Since Raila had the backing of the president, he thought that Uhuru would help him to steal votes in case he lost. Raila was running against William Ruto, Uhuru's deputy, who Uhuru had fell out with because of the political bromance that Uhuru had with Raila. Despite having the full backing of the deep state, for a fifth consecutive time, Raila was once again defeated fair and square making William Ruto the 5th president of the republic. Since the end of colonial rule in Africa, the continent has been struggling to achieve two things. Number one, it is political freedom, and number two, it is economic freedom. Several countries have been able to achieve a level of political freedom that is close to that of the West and Europe, and that is South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. But when it comes to economic freedom, that is where we all fall short. In 2027, Kenya will conduct another general election. Unlike the previous ones that focused on tribe, this election is the most anticipated one in the history of our republic because the main issue will be about our economy. The hope is that come August of 2027, Kenyans, especially the young people, will rally behind leaders who have a plan for economic empowerment rather than empty promises.